Hello and welcome to episode 14 of the I Know About Sports podcast. I am your lovely host, Noah Arnold. It is a very cold, very rainy night, November 14th, 2024. This episode, I will give my predictions for the upcoming week of college football. It is week number 12 already. The season just goes too fast, y'all. We're already in mid-November. Next week is Thanksgiving, or not this upcoming weekend, but next weekend is Thanksgiving, which is rivalry week, the last week of the regular season. This is too much, y'all. Time moves weird. It's strange. Yeah, that's why I give my predictions, and I also kind of give my own rankings, because for the playoff, what they have versus what I have, I haven't really done this yet. Give my own rankings. I think I may start this every Tuesday. I'll rank them every Tuesday. The same day the committee ranks them. I think I want to try and start that. Kind of give a recap. Sorry, I've been sick the last couple of days. Give like a recap. Heisman, eliminator, Heisman race, and then my own rankings. And then kind of go from there and see what happens there on Tuesdays. But for this week, on Thursday, I'll give my first ever ranking. That will be later on. But we're going to start on the top. We have 10 games. We go by chronological order. So when they happen, when the kickoff is, it's not biggest game to least important game. It's just the way they scheduled. We're going to start off noon kickoff. Number 20, Clemson, travels up to Yenserville to take on Pittsburgh. Pitt, they started 7-0. Winning a lot of very close games against not the best competition. Let's just put it lightly. Lost last two games. Lost a blowout to LSMU and then lost close at home to a middling Virginia team. Not a bad Virginia team, just a middling Cavalier team. If Pitt wants to win this game, they have to make it very ugly. But simply put, I don't think Clemson's run game and line play, I think they're just better than Pitt. And as long as Cade Klubnik doesn't absolutely suck, I think Tigers pull this one off. If we still have kind of 2024 middling to signs of elite play Cade rather than last year's disaster Cade. Oh, awesome. Dropped my phone. I think Clemson wins this game comfortably. I don't think it's a blowout necessarily, but I think Clemson wins this game as long as Cade Klubnik doesn't suck. Moving on to another noon game. Number 3, Texas travels to Fayetteville to take on Arkansas. It is a classic rivalry. Old Southwest rivalry is now renewed in the Southeastern Conference. The intensity should be there. The atmosphere should be there. Texas is going to kill them. Sorry to spoil it for y'all. Arkansas is not going to be able to keep up with this Longhorn offense. Texas is just by far and away the better team. I like Arkansas. I like the direction they're going. I was always a Sam Pittman guy. I think Sam Pittman's a good coach. Some want him on the hot seat, some want him fired, but I like Sam Pittman. I like this rough and tough hog team. They don't stand a chance. Texas is going to win. Moving on, another noon game. I know we have a lot of controversy about big noons and what off this week, but it will be Utah Utes travel to number 17, Colorado. It's a big noon game that doesn't have Ohio State. Crazy. Utah last week against BYU showed they can fight with top teams. But it was a home game against a heated rival. And that rival doesn't necessarily have the fireworks or star power that Colorado has. And so we put out said Utah, all you got to do to beat them is score more than 20. Colorado's going to do that. They're going to score at least 30. And I'm going with the Buffaloes on that one. I just don't think Utah can keep up with the high-powered Buffaloes offense. And I think this is a game in a nationally televised game. Big noon. Everybody's going to be tuning into this. I think this is where Travis Hunter pretty much cements himself as maybe the Heisman Trophy winner. I think it may be this game. Another noon game. It's the third noon game. Wow. Number 25, Tulane. They're finally ranked this week. Here we go, Green Wave. They travel to Annapolis to play Navy. This is a huge game. Huge game. Winner of this game will play Army in the American Conference Championship game. This could go either way because, weird stuff can happen when a triple option is involved. Very weird stuff. But I think these two teams are in completely different directions. First of all, Tulane, they started 1-2 with 2 losses close to Kansas State and Oklahoma. Since then, they've won 7 in a row and are 6-0 in conference. I'm not feeling it. My throat. Navy started 6-0, 1-2 since then, and simply put, I'm just picking the Green Wave is going to subdue the Navy. I think Tulane's just more talented. They're peaking at the right time. They're one of the hottest teams in the country. I think Navy wins this game, goes on to the AAC Championship game for potentially a spot in the playoffs with Army, depending on the way the rest of the games play out. We will see, but I think Tulane wins this one. Moving on to the first of 2 FCS games I will predict. This is the first time I've ever done 2 FCS games on this show and maybe even in my whole predictions. It is the number 14 Missouri State Bears traveling up to number 1 North Dakota State from the Fargo Dome. I think this one's 3 o'clock on ESPN+. I think the Bears of Missouri, listen, they're on the way to the FBS. They're going to be moving up from the FCS ranks. They're going to move up to the FBS, join Conference USA next year. But it's not to play this year out the FCS ranks. And while, granted, they're going to be playing at a higher level next year than North Dakota State, they're going to be beneath the Bison on a lower level on the scoreboard Saturday. North Dakota State wins this one, and I think they're on the way to another national championship this season. They're just by far and away the best team in the FCS, in my opinion. Once again. A game I will be at 4:15 on the SEC Network. Number 23, Missouri, travels to Columbia to take on the 21st ranked South Carolina Gamecocks. The Columbia Cup is on the line in Williams-Brice Stadium. As I said, I will be there. First time the Gamecocks have been at home since they throttled A&M 2 weeks ago and they stormed the field. I was on that field, and my ribs still kind of hurt. They have another ranked team coming to town in Missouri. But just like the A&M game, I'm very confident Carolina's going to beat them. And I think I'm more confident they beat Missouri handily than I did against A&M. I picked them to beat A&M close. I'm picking them to curb stomp Missouri. Missouri is not a good football team. They are just not. They have a good record because they're inflated by playing a lot of bad teams. The two good teams they've played was A&M and Alabama. They lost those games by a combined score of 71-10. Or 75-10. And Carolina's the hottest team in the country. And Missouri may not even have their starting quarterback in Brady Cook. I don't care if he's playing or not. Carolina, if they don't win this game by 2 touchdowns or more, it will be a disappointment. So I'm going with Carolina to win. I'm going with Carolina to stomp Missouri on Saturday. I have never been as confident in a Carolina game as I have this game. The only time I've ever been as confident in Carolina was that they would struggle and be down in the start of the fourth quarter to Old Dominion at the start of the season. And I was very correct on that. In fact, I was perfect on that. Moving on. 7th game already. Arizona State travels to Manhattan, Kansas to play the 16th ranked Kansas State Wildcats. Who would have thought that this game would have playoff implications at the start of the season? Just an incredible year by the Sun Devils. And listen, I think this is a little too early in the development cycle to win a big pressure game like this. So I'm going with Avery Johnson and the Kansas State Wildcats, the much experienced Wildcats for this one. But I think this game's going to be good. It's going to be close. But I think in these pressure situations, I'm going with the veteran team that's been there. And I'm going with Kansas State. Maybe next year or the year after, I really like the direction Arizona State's heading. When they looked like they were dormant. They were bottom of the bottom. So, yeah, the party school in the country, Arizona State. Not this year, maybe next year. We'll see. Number 1, Oregon travels to Madison, Wisconsin to play the Wisconsin Badgers. It is another Saturday night NBC game for Wisconsin at home versus an undefeated top 4 team. And unfortunately, just like with the Penn State game, I think it's going to be a similar result for the Badgers. Unfortunately for them, I think the Ducks win this game fairly comfortably. I think they improved to, let's see what they were improved to. I mean, look at, what's their record? 10-0? They're going to be 11-0. Yep, 10-0. I only say that because some teams have bye weeks yet. Some teams only have 2 games after this week. Some teams only have 1 game. We're this late in the year and we're still having bye weeks. That's ridiculous in college football, by the way. Ridiculous. At this point in time, everybody should have already played the same amount of games, besides like Army and Navy, because they have the game later on. So, yeah, I think Oregon comfortably improves to 11-0. What is going to be the game of the week? Biggest game of the week. College Game Day will be there. Number 7, Tennessee. The Volunteers travel down to Athens, Georgia to play the 12th-ranked Georgia Bulldogs, coming off a loss last week in Oxford to Ole Miss. This is another potential elimination game. I'm not sure if Tennessee is eliminated if they lose, but I know damn sure no matter what kind of garbage ESPN tries to spit out, a third loss would eliminate Georgia. They have no reason to be in if they suffer a third loss in the season. And much like last year, this is my very controversial opinion. All right, games matter. Games matter. If you win, you get rewarded. If you lose, you get punished. Listen, if we have this team would be favored in this matchup, or this team would be, lesser than. Games are not played on paper. These games are not played on a Vegas spread. These games are played on a football field. And if you suffer 3 losses, you should not be in over a team who's suffered only 1 or 0 losses. They're pushing this crap agenda. So that way, if, let's say, BYU goes undefeated in the regular season, lose the conference championship, and go 12-1, they want to kick out BYU. Or if Indiana suffers 1 close loss to Ohio State, they're going to kick them out too, because, simply put, the logo on the side of the helmet's not as well known and not as popular. That's the only reason. And they don't have the Southeastern Conference logo patched on their jersey. A third loss should eliminate Georgia. Fortunately, Georgia's going to win this game. Tennessee can only win this game if they throw the ball on Georgia, and they're not going to be able to do that with Nico, who has not given them the level of production they hoped for this year. And not only that, Nico Imaliava may be out for this game with a concussion. So despite the Dogs' offensive struggles this year, and especially with the QT at QB in Carson Beck, just being just absolute dog water, I'm going with Georgia to win this one. I think they cover the 8.5-point spread. I think Georgia comfortably beats Tennessee in this game. Last game, the second FCS game, number 2 Montana State, 10-0, undefeated this year, travels to Davis, California to take on UC Davis. This is the second FCS game I'm covering. It's a top 5 matchup. Game day probably should have been here. UC Davis has been a movie script this year, having a breakout run, best season in program history, led by their former coach, Tim Plow, in his first season as head coach of his alma mater. But they're facing maybe the best team in the FCS ranks in the Montana State Bobcats. I'm not the biggest FCS guy, but every prediction is 50-50. It is split down the middle. So when things like this, I'm going with the team that's been there before in these big moments. I'm going with Montana State to win a shootout out in Davis. So I'm picking Montana State to remain undefeated, be the lone unbeaten in the FCS ranks in the regular season, and knock off UC Davis. So, recap, I got Clemson over Pitt, Texas over Arkansas, Colorado over Utah, Tulane over Navy, North Dakota State over Missouri State, South Carolina over Missouri, Kansas State over Arizona State, Oregon over Wisconsin, Georgia over Tennessee, and Montana State over UC Davis. So moving on to my own rankings. Don't know if you saw the college football playoff rankings for this week that were released Tuesday night, but they are as followed. They have Oregon State number 1, Ohio State's number 2, Texas number 3, Penn State's 4, Indiana's 5, BYU is 6, Tennessee is 7, Notre Dame 8, Miami is 9th, Alabama's 10th, Ole Miss is 11th, Georgia is 12th, Boise State is 13, SMU is 14, A&M 15, 16 Kansas State, 17 Colorado, 18 Washington State, 19 Louisville, 20 Clemson, 21 South Carolina, 22 LSU, 23 Missouri, 24 Army, and 25 Tulane. Hopefully you caught all that, or you decided to just look them up yourself. So I don't have any big graphic on the screen. I'm trying to learn how to do graphics in my sports class. But, so I'll have my own ranking that I have up here. I think the top 3 is perfect. Oregon is my number 1 team as well. Undefeated, been the best team in the country. And they have that win over Ohio State, who I have at number 2 as well. The Buckeyes haven't shown necessarily spectacular play this year. Don't have the best upside as they have in years past, but this has been a really consistent, good football team. And I want the Buckeyes here. Texas doesn't have a signature win. Their best win may be at Vanderbilt or at Michigan. So 2 not great wins for Texas, but they passed the eye test. And I think they have the upside to win it all. Number 4 is the undefeated Indiana Hoosiers. I have them flipped over Penn State, who the committee had at 4. Indiana's just been dominant all year. Yes, they haven't had the hardest conference schedule, but they've beaten everybody they should, and they've just dominated. BYU is number 5. I don't think BYU is necessarily going to be a national championship contender or nothing, but undefeated. They're still winning these Power 5 games. You have to reward them. And they had the huge win over SMU, which we didn't realize at the time how big of a win BYU over SMU was going to be. So I have the Cougars at 5th. As I said, I like to reward winning. Undefeated matters to me. Number 6, Penn State. Just the committee has Penn State as 4. I have Penn State as 6. This is a good team. As I said with BYU, I don't think they're a national championship contender. I'm not as high as Penn State and others are, but I still think they should be 6, ranked 6. And by the way, power rankings are different from just regular rankings, in my opinion. So that's why I may think a team is better than others, but they're not ranked higher because I think rankings are based off of what's been on the field. And so you put Penn State, yeah, well, they're on the field, resume should probably be the 6th best team in the country. 7, Tennessee, it's very similar to Penn State, but I think Tennessee is a better football team than Penn State is. So you may ask me tomorrow, I may even have these 2 teams flipped in my eyes. In fact, you know what? Yeah, I will have them flip. Yeah, Tennessee 6, Penn State 7. There we go, right there. Tennessee has a big win over Bama. They have a couple of nice wins this year. Great running back, great defense. And if Nico can just click, this team would honestly be a title contender. Number 8, Miami. No, they just lost to Georgia Tech. I know. But I still think this is a great football team. They have the best quarterback in the country in Cam Ward. And this team seemingly can make magic out of nothing. So I'm going to get the Hurricanes at 8. Number 9. If you asked me a few weeks ago, I thought Bama was done. D-O-N-E, done. I thought they were going to get stomped by LSU this past week, but they proved me wrong again. I think this Bama team is red hot, and they're going to continue that success to maybe Atlanta for the SEC Championship game, maybe to the playoffs. We will see. But I think this Bama team is finally showing what they could be this year, and I think they're peaking at the right time. Speaking of peaking at the right time, number 10, Ole Miss. I think the Rebels, another big win against Georgia. Also peaking at the right time. They had a little bit of struggles at the start of the year. But I think this offense is starting to really click. The defense really clicked. The defense has been the most surprising thing about this Ole Miss team. A very good defense all year. I think the Rebels are 10th for me. Number 11, Boise State. Only loss in the year is to the top team in the country in Oregon, close, and they probably should have beat them. They have maybe the best player in college football in Ashton Jeanty. This team is just cruising along, and who knows? Maybe they could host a playoff game. Maybe they could get a first round bye. At the very least, I think Boise State will be in the playoffs. And you never know when an elite player like Ashton Jeanty is on the field. You never know what the outcome could be. Number 12, Georgia. Got the Dogs at number 12, falling down. I think as a loss this week and a loss period for the rest of the way, I think seals it, ends it for Georgia. And just because Carson Beck has fallen apart this year, I was never a big bet guy, but he looks awful. But his defense still looks looks okay. This is not what I thought Georgia would be this year at all. Number 13, not what I thought it'd be at all this year. SMU. I thought they'd be good this year. Didn't think they'd be this good. I thought about ranking them higher. But I think SMU just doesn't have the resume at this point to pass up some of these other teams. But they definitely have the eye test very well. And I think SMU could be a really sneaky team. Maybe could go off an upset in the playoffs if they can get there. They have to win the ACC championship game. Number 14, Notre Dame. They are all the way at 8 in the polls. Yes, I think Notre Dame at this point is a top 10 team in the country. However, they freaking lost to NIU. I cannot excuse how bad of a loss that is. They lost to Northern Illinois at home, and they look like crap. Northern Illinois didn't just have a fluke. They were the better team on the field. Notre Dame could still maybe backed away into the playoffs in my own polls. But that's got to mean something. Losing to Northern Illinois has to mean something more. So, yeah, Notre Dame is out of the playoffs for me at this moment just because of that loss. Yes, I know they're peaking at the right time. Yes, I know they look pretty solid. But, oh my God, that loss has to mean something. Number 15, the team they beat in week 1 of the season, the week before they lost to NIU, Texas A&M. I saw the same opinion on them as I did before they played South Carolina. Really solid team, maybe a year away, but a really good defensive-oriented team, run game team. Mike Elko has his team ground and pound, rough and tough, like he did in Duke. And I really like the direction he's taking this program. Number 16, Kansas State. Really like the direction they're going. Avery Johnson's a star quarterback. It's a star team. If they can look like they may try and they need some stuff to go right for them, but they have to try and get their way to the Big 12 championship game. And remember a couple years ago, they beat TCU, was undefeated heading into the Big 12 title game. And if this was this year's playoff format then, Kansas State would have been in the playoffs. They're hoping to try and get another chance this year. Number 17, Colorado. 15 through 17 is the exact same rankings, by the way, as a committee. I think they were pretty spot on there. Colorado, only conference loss on the year is to Kansas State, which I have them ranked lower. But that's their only Big 12 loss, meaning they are ahead of Kansas State in the standings in the Big 12 standings, meaning if Colorado just wins out, they will be playing for the Big 12 title in a spot in the college football playoffs. So, see what Deion Sanders can do. Number 18, they are all the way at like 23 or 24 in the actual polls. Army, number 18 for me. They're undefeated. They have curb stomped almost every team they've played. They've only trailed for 5 minutes all year. That has to mean something. Not a single game for them has been one possession. That has to mean something. I think if Boise State slips up one bit, I think Army should immediately jump them. They're that good of a team. Number 19, in my opinion, the hottest team in the country, the 19th ranked South Carolina Gamecocks. They are peaking at the right time. They are finding themselves. The defense is maybe the best defense in the country. Lenore Sellers is on another freaking planet right now. And if he had a decent receiving core, he'd be in the running for best quarterback in the country. He's that talented. This is what I was afraid of as a Clemson fan, is Lenore Sellers being this good. And he is this good. Number 20, Washington State. One loss, only loss in the year, was a blowout loss at Boise. But they just don't have a great resume. Simply put, they've rebuilt well with the death of the Pac-12, with the loss of Cam Ward. But their resume is just not very good. That's why they're ranked this low. And maybe they can try and get in as a at-large team, but that seems unlikely at this point for me. And I said I have a 3-loss. I know I said about 3 losses versus 1 loss. But in this case, Washington State is essentially a group of 5 team. And I think that kind of punishes the Wazoo. Number 21, Louisville. They are a really talented team. 3 losses, all close on the road, and great teams that are ranked ahead of them. This is a great Louisville team. Jeff Brom is a fantastic coach. Now coaching his alma mater. Perfect right now. I think they're in the right direction. I just love where this Louisville team is heading. Number 22, Clemson. Maybe they could still reach the playoffs. If Miami loses another game and Clemson beats Pitt, Clemson would be heading to the ACC championship game for a spot in the college football playoffs. Wild, wild, wild. Think about it. It could happen. But yeah, I think Clemson, they've dominated all the bad teams. And a hard-fought win at Virginia Tech. But their best win of the year is going to have to be at Pitt or against Carolina. So their best 2 games are in front of them. Not the best competition, but they still, at least they at minimum get the best 2 teams in front of them. Number 23, LSU. I was a lot higher on this team 2 weeks ago than I am now. Back-to-back weeks getting dominated on the ground again. I know this defense has improved, but that seems like only the pass defense has improved. They are just getting sliced and diced, out-muscled, outran. And that's just tough sled in there in Baton Rouge. And they're now eliminated from the playoffs as well. Team that's not eliminated from the playoffs is number 24, Tulane. They also jump up with me. They're 1 spot higher than they actually have, than they are in the actual polls. Tulane, very hot. Very, very hot. They could beat almost anybody in the country. And 6-0 in conference play. I think they're a lock to play Army in the AAC championship game, and that's going to be a battle. That's going to be a war, and I'm so pumped for that game. And number 25 closing out, I have Arizona State. I don't have Missouri ranked, but I do have the Sun Devils ranked. They have had a fantastic season up to this point. Beating all the teams they need to face, they need to beat. And decent resume. Then they have if they win out, they're in the Big 12 title game with some help, as long as Colorado loses another game. They have Kansas State, number 16 in the country, on the road this week. Then they host BYU at home, who's undefeated, number 6 in the country. And they travel to Arizona. So if they win the next 2 games, the Sun Devils could be in the playoffs. Who would have thunk it? And with exactly 30 minutes left, that is going to do it. Wow, perfect timing. At the start of this podcast journey, I want to get my podcast like 30 and under. And I'm looking at these schedule the last couple weeks. I'm hitting that. I am hitting that, man. I'm so freaking proud of myself. I know you're proud of me too. No, you're proud of me too. Well, that being said, don't get sick, guys. There's something in my throat. I've been taking cough drops. I've been taking Advil. It's rough. All right, it's rough out here. Thank you all. Thank you all.